If you suddenly found yourself in a country with strange giant creatures, what would you do? You would have to go from place to carry out investigations, look death in the face many times, and even get betrayed by your colleague along the way. Today I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the giant creatures in Kagewani. This dude here is called Banba, and before you say it, he already knows his life has changed. In fact, he's so aware how messed up his world is that he actively spends his time searching for the craziest stuff in his world. This fine young lady comes to his office to invite him for this seminar, but when she enters, she realizes that he has gone out. Meanwhile, a little distance from his school, these boys are out creating content in the forest. They're led by Mr. Smarty Pants in glasses. They claim they are out to search for an unidentified mysterious animal on an uninhabited island. They plan to create a fake video, but they have no idea just how real things are about to get. They try to make a video with fake toy dinosaur, but something in the water spoils the toy's engine. One of the boys goes to get a new engine for the toy, but he falls into a ditch. He doesn't realize that the ditch is the footprint of a giant creature. When the boy takes too long to return, his friends decide to go search for him. On their way, they find the toy he was meant to fix inside a puddle of water. That's when they first hear a weird sound, like an earthquake. The sound draws closer, and that's when they make their first mistake. Instead of running away, Mr. Smarty Pants decides to get their camera and film whatever is making the earth shake, because he feels they'll never get another chance like this one. His other friends decides the views aren't worth his life, but before he can run away, a giant bird picks him up with its beak. That's when Mr. Smarty Pants decides it's time to run. How convenient. He loses his glasses while trying to run, but when he stops to hide behind a log, he finds the dead body of his friend, the one who went to get the toy. He looks through the lens of his camera, and that's when he sees the full shape of the giant creature that has been chasing him. He slips from a cliff and lands near water, but his joy doesn't last long either. The creature chases him down and makes a good meal out of him. First off, you run. I don't know what Mr. Smarty Pants was thinking, but when you see a monster, you don't wait to get proof. You see it, there it is. Run. Because, gee, I don't know, you might want to get your life secure first, and the lives of your friends. After that, then you can consider picking up your camera to try to make a video. Honestly, if I were in his shoes, this would never have gone out of hand. Before we even consider the monster, let's talk about his location. Heck, there is a reason there is barbed wires literally saying keep the F out. So I want to go shoot some content and go viral? Great plan. How about you get a green screen instead? It becomes even more annoying when you realize they didn't go there in search of anything. They were always going to use their stupid toy anyway, so why not film the video in your toilet sink with a green screen to create the forced effect? I'm sure a little bit of Photoshop or Adobe Premiere or whatever would have gotten the job done. Then they want to get their lives in danger just for a freaking shoot. And of course, if they had to go there, they should have gone there with their boots laced and ready to run at the slightest inconvenience. You are going to an uninhabited island. You don't know what's out there, so why not take at least the bare minimum precaution of having your boots laced? And how about even having some pepper spray as well? Or maybe even a gun. Banba arrives on the scene to investigate what has just happened, but as he tries to walk away, the camera used by Mr. Smarty Pants lands in front of him, full of weird black ink. When he tries to touch the ink, the 3-clawed mark on his face starts to ache. Back in his office, Banba receives a call that his friend, a mountain climber named Pranoto, was injured and carried off a mountain. But then things get weird. He rushes down to the hospital to figure out what's going on. According to her theory, she climbed the mountain with a group of climbers because she was looking for her dad. But on their way, one of the climbers got hypothermia, and so the others decided that they should leave the mountain. They were only 50 meters from the summit of the mountain, and Pranoto believed her father was there, so she tried to encourage them. They said no, and I don't blame them. Her father had been missing for 6 years. But they all agree to go to bed. But when Pranoto wakes up, she finds out that the other tents have been destroyed, and she finds the man with hypothermia, but he doesn't know what happened. Pranoto immediately radios for help to come and pick them up. While she's waving her fire flare for the helicopter to see, a monster creeped up behind her and grabbed her. She passed out, and when she woke up, she's next to the dead body of her father, and she's smart enough to figure out that the creature she's dealing with cannot see normally. It sees by heat. So she does the most logical thing. She strips down. As her body starts to freeze, her temperature gets so low that the creature can't see her internal body heat anymore. Pretty smart, if it wasn't so dangerous. When the creature returns, it has a hard time finding her, but just when it was about to attack her, her father's music box rings out, and that catches the attention of the creature, and so it turns her away. The power of plot armor. The doctor relays everything to Banba, but the doctor thinks that she made up the story about the monster due to hallucinations. However, Pranoto opens her eyes just enough to show Banba the name tag of her father, which she retrieved from the mountain, giving some actual physical proof to her claims. While Banba is still trying to wrap his head around what happened to Pranoto, a small Japanese island starts experiencing its own phenomenon. A creature in the water is killing sea travelers. Recently, this guy lost his friend, friend, Minato Haruka. But he is pissed because the searchers cannot search for her, saying they have to wait out the storm first. And he's worried because he went sea diving with her when she got missing. While under the water, they saw a crack in the ground. And yes, in a typical sense-lacking manner, they thought it was best to find out what made the crack. But as soon as they got close to the rift, these weird green veggie things attacked Haruka and dragged her down to the cold depths. The creature attacked the beach again, and the boy who managed to swim away rushed down to the beach to take out his anger on the creature. He stabs the creature over and over with his pitchfork, and it starts spilling a black substance. When they show a picture of one of the creatures to Banba, he gets concerned because of the black substance all around the creature. When Banba looks at the picture, he learns a scary truth. He rushes to the island where Haruka went missing, but when he gets there, they set the creature on fire. He explains that the creature they are burning right now might be the missing Haruka. He shows them a picture, and weirdly enough, there is a human skeleton merged with the jellyfish-like creature. Later that night, one of the divers notices that the body of the creature they burnt is no longer at the beach. Meanwhile, our boy hears strange sounds near his door. When he opens to check, he sees a lady standing at the door. But before he can properly send her away, the jellyfish creature shows up behind her. He plays the tough guy and pushes the girl out of the way before attacking the creature, and after stabbing for a while, and guess what he sees inside? Yep, the face of his missing friend Haruka. She drags him back to the sea, and by the next morning, the villagers see two jellyfish monsters entwined at the seashore. Banba continued his journey to another village. There he met this guy going down into the sewers, and for whatever reason he decided to stick around. While there he sees these two boys playing with a drone. Shun and his brother get into a fight over who should play with the drone, and while they're fighting, the drone falls into the sewers. But that's when things get interesting. Because Shun doesn't want to get the butt whooping from his mom, he tells his brother they have to go down into the sewers and find the drone. How typical. They enter and keep on searching until he finds the drone. At first, Shun's brother thinks that Shun is driving the drone back to them, but that's when Shun points out that he has not started operating the drone at all. And that's when a giant turtle monster rises from the sewers and rushes after them. And yes, they do what every logical teenager would do: panic and run. They climb into the manhole and hold on for dear life. But that's when Shun's brother notices that there's a dead body stuck on the manhole. They stay for a while, and when the creature passes underneath them, Shun uses the drone camera to survey the area. But when he sees nothing, they think everything is back to normal. But when the camera feed goes blank, Shun decides to be brave since he got them into this mess, and he tells his brother to stay in the manhole while he goes to check where the creature is. But as soon as his legs come out into the open, something grabs his leg. Luckily, it's just Banba. They find out the creature has shed its skin, and just then, the creature rushes to attack them. Banba leads them to run away, but the creature is so fast, it starts catching up, and that's when this guy shows up with a flamethrower thing and roasts the creature, while Banba and the boys jump into the sewer water. Oh my good gosh, that is disgusting. But better stinky than dead. The man named Kimura helps Banba and the boys, but Banba tells him that he has killed his precious research subject. He shows Banba something that he retrieved from the sewer and asks Banba to work with him, but he turns him down. The next day, Banba heads down to a new location because of a weird report they got from there. These store workers are getting ready to close their store when this nerd dude named Ray caught a woman trying to steal from the store. Just when he's about to catch her, his friend who had closed for the day ran back into the store bleeding from his head. Although they could see him running, they could not see what was chasing him. And that's when a creature grabs him by his hair, and just before it ate him, it literally appears out of thin air. A giant chameleon that apparently has a knack for human flesh swallows him whole and changes colors again to match the surrounding. It disappears from Ray and the woman's eyes. Ray signals to the woman to crawl in his direction, but as she tries, the item she stole falls out of her pocket and makes a sound. And that's all the creature needs to find her. But before it can strike, our boy Ray shows what all nerds are good at: being smart. He picks up some eggs and throws at the spot where the sound of the creature is. As soon as it lands, it becomes easy for them to tell where the creature is because it now has egg stains on it. Ray tells the woman to run out of the store. As soon as she runs out, he hides behind the counter, but the creature already has its eyes on him. As he gets close, the woman surprisingly returns and slams a trolley into the creature. This gives them enough time to run into one of the inner room stalls and lock themselves in. As you'd expect, the creature breaks the lock, but not before they see an escape vent. Ray lets the woman climb onto his back and escape, but when it gets to his turn, the creature breaks the door fully, and when it gets ready to attack Ray, some hands grab him from outside and pull him out of the escape vent. Outside, Kimura is waiting for his fumigators, and boy do they spray fire on the creature. They roast it to death just before he tells Ray and the lady they saw nothing, meaning they gotta keep quiet about what they saw. Back in the present, Banba is worried because he knows that the creature is now walking among men. Okay, Ray here exhibited some pretty bad traits that almost got him killed. If I were in his shoes, things would have gone way differently. Why did he try to help a woman who was trying to steal from the shop? Call me evil and cold-hearted, but I'd very much like to use her as my ticket to survival, thank you very much. She stole from my store, right? So that makes me better than her, right? Maybe. In any case, Ray works in the shop. He probably knows all of the escape routes from the shop, including the ones in the room that he locked himself in. I would have escaped first through that hole, and then found help for the mysterious girl. And I would not put myself in jeopardy just to be like the nice guy. But instead of doing that, he actually comes out and starts throwing eggs at the creature. He literally gives himself up for her by letting her run away, and then he serves as the distraction again, which is something you don't do. Anyway, he's lucky enough that she came back just when he was about to become Chameleon Chow, which goes to show not all thieves are pure evil. But even if I did get myself in jeopardy, Ray and the woman had more than one opportunity to escape, and if not for luck, they would have been dead. Think about it. They saw this creature literally gobble down Ray's colleague. If a creature can pick a man of his size and fit him into its mouth, I would like to believe a puny door like this would not be able to keep me safe. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna backtrack to where she slammed the creature to save Ray. That would be the perfect opportunity to run out of the building, not run into some room and get stuck and pinned down and cornered by a freaking creature. Bamba remembers his last conversation with Kimura and remembers where Kimura begs him to come and work with him on his research because he is the most knowledgeable person about these creatures, but he refused. So instead he travels towards Antarctica, where there was another mysterious creature there. Of all places in the world to propose to a lady, this guy chose under the sea of the South Pole. How romantic. But things got out of hand when their submarine driver saw something outside his window and suddenly faints. The captain reestablishes connection with the submarine and tells the group what to do to enable the ship to locate their submarine. He presses a red button, but when he thinks everything's fine, he finally sees what made the driver faint. A giant humanoid fish creature approaching them at a very fast speed. Bamba displays his wisdom by telling them to remain calm because he knows what kind of creature this is. He tells them to back off slowly because the creature reacts to fast movement. However, as they try to back off, the creature grabs their submarine. Before it can eat it though, the guy pushes the accelerator and they start rising back to the surface. But the creature doesn't give up and starts chasing them. My, how predictable. And just when they think their luck can't get any worse, the engine loses compression and decides that it doesn't want to take them any farther. And that's when Bamba tells them to use the sonar and send out an SOS because this creature uses sonar, so they might be able to trick it into believing the ship is one of its own, maybe. As soon as it hears the SOS, it retreats and leaves them alone. By the time he got off the boat, there was an eyewitness report of an even stranger creature waiting for him, this woman named Naruko. And these two kids nearly got eaten alive by a creature in the ground. Naruko caught them playing with her chickens and scolds them for trying to stay out late, and when she learns that Minori's parents don't return till late, she gives in and allows them to stay. They decide to draw some lines on the ground and play, but as they do, the ground begins to shake. At first they think it's just an earthquake, a minor one, but when Minori's stick falls, a giant pincer-like crab hand suddenly bursts out of the earth and grabs it. That's when they know they're screwed. The other kid tries to run after his friend, but Naruko stops him from becoming Pincer Chow. And as soon as the pincers go after Naruko's chickens, she uses the opportunity to run to a safe spot with the other kid, and she realizes that this creature only responds to sound. And the only problem is, how did they get Minori off of the ground? Naruko decides to risk it and goes all in while the other kid creates a diversion for her by throwing stones in the opposite direction where she's running. But after the first two stones, the creature stops following the sound of the stones and goes after Naruko. It bit the pole she was standing on, and suddenly the savior needs saving because she's sliding off the pole faster than water on an oil slick. Luckily, the balls Naruko was rolling fall out of their carton, and that's all the noise the creature needs. It abandons Naruko and goes after the rolling balls, and they use the opportunity to escape from the open field and get to higher ground. Bamba takes his ex, Saori, for a road trip to find out more about one of these creatures, but on their way they realize that the tunnel has been moving for far too long. There's an earthquake and the tunnel falls in, and when Bamba opens his eyes, he's upside down and he can't find Saori anywhere. And as he breathes in, a really sweet scent fills his senses, and then he sees another woman trapped in a different car. He goes to help her, but these spider-like creatures show up and squash her car like you would squash a bug. At first, Bamba thinks that these creatures are what caused the earthquake, but when he sees Saori, she looks tired and cannot really respond to any of his questions. When he tries to get her to move, she doesn't wanna. She's reluctant, so he helps her up and they head out of the tunnel together. But as soon as they get to the entrance, he notices that the sweet scent he was inhaling is now gone, and the world around him begins to look hazy. They collapse and rest to catch their breath, but then in a twist of fate, he sees rockets aimed at the tunnel. As they hit, there's an explosion and the tunnel entrance falls on Sora Saori and, well, she's dead. But then suddenly the tunnel changes into a giant animal, and that's when Bamba realizes that he's been under a genjutsu. To make matters worse, it's the Itachi kind that gives you a family you've never had, because the ex he thought he had, named Saori, turns into a reddish tongue of the creature. While Bamba tries to recover from almost losing his life, the creatures are still rampaging. The police investigate the death of 3 kids that took a 4th kid on a test of courage. All went well with the test except that only one of the kids came back. When they asked him what happened, his story was troubling. According to the kid named Satoru, the 3 other kids bullied him. But as they get deeper and deeper into this freaky botanical garden, they notice that there's something really strange about this place. That's when they decide to split up and cover more ground, because that's a great idea in an unknown environment. By the time they met at the other end, one of the kids is missing, and that's when things go even worse. With their flashlight, they spot a bunch of dead humans trapped inside of trees, and that's when they realize they're in a place with fly-trap flowers. The problem is that these flowers were carnivorous. When they try to run, their missing friend shows up out of nowhere and grabs Satoru, and he begs them not to leave him behind and to help him because the plants were sensitive to light. But you already know what the other kids did. Yeah, they leave him and Satoru and run away. Unfortunately, these flesh-eating trees aren't willing to let their snacks go so easily, so they chase after him. And that's when the boys decide to use each other's torch to keep the trees at bay. And it works for a while. But when one person's torch starts dying and then the lights go out, they realize they're screwed. So how do we survive this situation, folks? First, don't go. 2, bullying's bad. Second, don't split up. 3, do not abandon. I don't know if I really should beat this monster since the kid was only defending himself, but of course, if I were in the scene, I'm not gonna end up dried up and dead. First, easiest solution is don't bully anyone. Bullying's bad, we can see it even gets you killed. Or as close to killed as turning into dried meat is. I mean, think about it. Going by Satoru's story, which I don't entirely believe, the only reason they entered the botanical garden was because the 3 guys were trying to make fun of him. So to stop it from happening, simply say, I'm not gonna bully Satoru, and P.S. the quiet guys are always the most deadly, just so you know. Anyway, I'm not gonna bully him, and that way we don't enter the garden, and then we don't have to end up dead. Capiche? In the event that they do take advice from their darker sides, then we go to their second mistake, splitting up. I mean, who still splits up in times like this? There's absolutely no reason for them to split up. You'll want to bully a kid instead of focusing on the real problem. You decide to explore in the dead of night with no light? Seriously? If I were in their shoes, you take the roads together. That way we have all the light we need to keep the plant creatures at bay. But if we do end up going in different directions, when this guy comes out with his sad story, I'm not going to be eager to abandon him for the plants. I'm going to help him out of here. Why? He's already proved that he's smart enough to figure out one of the weaknesses, and he did it in less than 3 minutes of him disappearing, which means my chances of living increase exponentially with just having him around. Now there's 2 of us with torchlights, and we already don't care about Satoru because we came to bully him, so I totally ignore Satoru and point my light at my friend. Once I do that, the vines around him are going to loosen their grip, we'll be able to pull him free, and then with all 3 of us having torches, we would be creating a 3-point moving guard where one person faces our rear, the other person stays in front, and the last person points his torch at the ground. That way we are protected by the torches from the vines on every side, and we all get to leave the garden and hopefully live happily ever after. Well, all of us except Satoru, poor guy. But that's where things get weird. Back in the present, the police listens to the kid recounting the story, and it's none other than Satoru. Yeah, how did he escape? Well, Bamba can't figure it out, but as he gets closer to the boy, the mark on his face begins to itch again. That's when Kumura shows up again and said he'll take it from there. He warned Bamba to be careful of who he touches, because when Satoru turns around, his face had changed to green. He was the plant monster. Meanwhile, this totally random dude apologizes to his sick daughter for being unable to buy her medicine, and before their conversation is done, everyone in his village gets summoned before the village chief, and no, it's not good news. He tells them they have to leave the village because something called the Shadow Crocodile was on its way to their village. And our man over here decides that the village chief is just being a scaredy cat and he's not gonna leave. So instead, he gets on his boat and gets ready to leave. Before he goes though, this babe walks up to him and tells him to allow her to accompany him on his fishing trip. He asks her if she isn't running from the creature since she is the one that told the chief about the creature. But she says no and that she's hunting the creature. She tells him that the only way to hunt the shadow creature is by hunting its shadow. And this guy is such a doo-doo bird that he eventually stands in a way that his shadow is seen. And when she tries to push him out of the way, this creature bites her shadow's hand and her real arm comes off. But she's so freaking hard-boiled tough that instead of whining, she takes aim with her only arm and fires at the creature. When it runs, she lets out a scream of pain. By the time they get back to the village, the creature has eaten all of the villagers in its path, and this man swears to get revenge for his little daughter, and then together they set a trap for the creature. The man serves as bait and they lure the creature onto the boat. Then they set its shadow on fire, and as it burns to death, this shadow fritters away, and this man lies down in the boat feeling fulfilled for having avenged his daughter, but that's when she pushes a log of wood aside and comes out of hiding. Banba recalls how he first met the weird giant creatures. As a child, his parents locked him in on his birthday and went to buy him a gift. But when they got back, their town was attacked by the shadow creatures. A man's dog led them to the spot where the shadows would come out and started barking in that direction. But all the villagers stood and watched as the shadows slowly got bigger and bigger. Eventually, the shadows came out and started attacking everything and everyone in sight. Both of Banba's parents were killed by the creatures right before his eyes, and then the shadow came for Banba. But luckily for him, the same woman that lost her arm to save that guy showed up for him and stopped the creature from properly eating a shadow. The creature, however, bit a little bit out of his face, and that's how he got his unique 3-clawed scar on his face. Now that we have his mesmerizing backstory out of the way, if I were the villagers in this case, maybe not all of us would have to have died. Dogs don't bark for no reason, unless they're really stupid dogs. So if my dog is glued to a spot and continues barking, I already know there's something wrong with that spot, and at this point my outcome changes based on whatever action I decide to do next. I, for one, would not stay by my dog at the same spot where it thinks something is wrong and just ask, "Gee, what's wrong, boy?" No, I'm gonna take a few steps back and try to evaluate what could be going on. If it's a man, I'm well equipped to deal with him. If not, what do I need to do? I'm just gonna take some necessary precautions to be safe. And I'm gonna start with every mystical type of stuff I know, like getting some salt sprinkled around my house, maybe a touch of olive oil for good effect, and since, I don't know, vampires can't stand light, I'm gonna set up a few ultraviolet lamps if I can get them handy from a store somewhere, and light them up around my compound. Think of it like a 3-factor or 4-factor authentication. Then I'm gonna drag my dog back into the house and get my pistol and stay by the window to see what moves. And with that, I'll be ready for whatever is coming, and once I'm ready, I'm gonna be home with Banba before the shadow crocodile even starts coming out, and when it does, I'll have my trusty gun to shoot at them just like the weirdo did. Banba eventually decides that he's ready to follow Kimura back to his lab, so the two of them set out to his research center. Kimura talks to him about how they want the same thing, the Kagewani. Banba goes on to prove that he may be the world's best researcher on the subject. He gives a detailed explanation of the history and the origin of the Kagewani. And get this, it was created by merging multiple different predatory animals into one and hoping that the strongest of them would come out on top. Kimura explains that the original creature that was made has been destroyed, but the reason the weird monsters were still showing up randomly was because the ink from the original monster had made contact with a number of them. When the ink touches an animal, it changes into a monster, and that's why there are now a lot of monsters. But researching is not all this dude has been up to, because as usual, humans have not learned to mess with the weird stuff. So yeah, they create this thing, this giant mass of blackness, and it's the same thing as these shadow monsters. Kimura created it in his lab because he wants to control it and, well, control the world. You know, basic bad guy 101 stuff. Then he shows Banba this guy. He's proof that the Kagewani can't be controlled, or so Kimura thinks. Kimura claims that the plant guy cooperated with the research, but what he doesn't know is that the dude has been planning his escape, and he's filled all the open vent lines with his tree vines, and just while Banba is around, he decides it's time to break out. Kimura freaks out, but Banba says he's not worried about himself. Before they can finish beefing up security, all the rare monsters in the lab start attacking, starting with the weird turtle guy. And for Banba, who said he wasn't worried about himself, he gets a huge shock because he's the first to get injured, and Kimura abandons him and escapes alone. Wow, Banba walked into this one on his own. Look, this dude Kimura has literally been collecting these dangerous creatures for whatever reason, and you know, I live by some rules, and one of them is don't F around and find out. First off, knowing the kind of person he is, I'm not gonna dream of stepping into his research facility. I can't trust this guy. But in the event that I do, and I'm being foolish, as soon as I see the kind of creature that he's got locked up within the facilities, I'm on my way out. Think about it, no one keeps a bunch of nuclear warheads out of the open and then keeps the launch codes on his table every day. That's what this guy's doing, and for what? Personal gain? I've learned that sometimes there are things outside of human control. If I were in his shoes, I would leave before someone mistakenly hits that launch code and sets the weapons loose on everyone in the lab. But hey, Banba's a researcher. He's smarter than everyone else, so let's say his thirst for knowledge gets the better of him. Even then, I wouldn't get myself injured. Remember when the plant guy disappeared and Kimura freaks out, but Banba didn't? Well, if I were in his shoes, I would freak out, and freak out fast. And you know what else comes with freaking out? Actually doing something to protect yourself. And the one thing he can do is to get these fancy chairs here and use them as protective armor. And of course, as soon as I see Kimura move, I'm gonna follow him because I know a selfish dude like him definitely has something planned for emergencies. As Kimura uses his escape chamber to run away, the Kagewani shows up behind Banba, and I guess it's time to kiss Banba sensei goodbye. Kimura's special forces come to rescue him from the premises, and they break down the escape chamber and immediately deliver very shocking news to Kimura. Banba is alive. The news sends shivers down his spines, and he starts asking questions that is on everybody's mind. Why the F is that dude still alive? And that's when it gets worse, when he learns that all Banba lost was a bit of blood. There's really no dangerous injury on him. Kimura heads back and uses the lab cameras to see what happened, and what he finds is shocking. The monster came close to Banba Bamba, but as soon as it saw him, it tries to run away. And then it gets attacked by the black mass that Kimura created. But as soon as the black mass finishes decimating the creature, it gets absorbed by Bamba's 3-clawed wound on his eye. Bamba is one of them. The hospital calls Kimura and lets him know that half of Bamba's face has turned black. He immediately tells them to get out of here, and back at the hospital, a shadow crocodile comes out of Bamba and eats the nurse attending to him. Poor lady. Kimura finally figures out that the reason the scar on Bamba was always itching him when they were close to any creature was because the fluid inside him was resonating with the Kagewani. Basically, Bamba was always the perfect test subject they've been looking for, and that's why he was never attacked. Bamba makes a solid mess of the entire place, kills all the monsters guarding him, and disappears. And then he boldly strolls down to where Kimura is, and well, returns the favor by killing Kimura. Before killing Kimura, Bamba promises him that he will destroy the Kagewani. As he leaves the research facility, this old lady shows up, and turns out she's the same woman that saved him from the shadow crocodile all those years ago, and she brings out a knife to kill him. But then a young child walks in between them and has no idea what's going on, and the kid runs into Bamba, and while the woman is afraid that he would hurt the kid, he simply picks up the kid's gift and sends the child on his merry little way. She warns Bamba that he should be careful, and if he ever turns away from the right or if Kagewani takes over, she will be there to kill him. But what do you guys think about the video? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a thumbs up down below, and as always, don't forget to check out our How to Beat playlist.